What is up, my YouTube family? Welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, then it's just welcome to my channel and not welcome back. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button because you will not be disappointed unless, of course, your taste level is lacking. And again, I have no solutions. I'm so sorry about it. But next week, I promise I'm gonna try to find some resolve for y'all because I'm a philanthropist. That'll be my good deed for August. So next week, I'll have some suggestions. Everyone else, hello. I hope you're doing well. Y'all, is it me or do the Leos really start acting up around Leo season? Like, I feel like they're the loudest coming in. And I'm not wrong. I know what I'm talking about. Really quick before we get into today's video, I want to address the hair because every time I pop on a wig, somebody's like, where are the locks? The locks are tucked underneath, baby. They are. And this wig, I don't know what wig this is to give y'all a link. All I know is that it came from RPG show. All of my wigs come from there. And this wig is like 4 or 5 years old at this point. So, yeah, I'm sorry. I can only recommend the company. And I've gotten so many wigs from there. I've never been disappointed. But I just felt like switching it up a little bit, you know, just a little bit. I had on a blonde wig yesterday, black today, and I'm about to dye a 613, and I think I'm gonna do it like an ash blonde because I was honey blonde yesterday. Something to think about. I haven't decided, but don't be surprised if the next time you see me where I got a little piece of ash blonde on my head. But anyway, to today's video, we are going to discuss 2 cases of people being locked up abroad. And of course, I always want to know what y'all think about it. So let me just not run my mouth no more and get into the things. Otto Warmbier is the oldest child born to Fred and Cindy Warmbier in Cincinnati, Ohio, and was described as being a very well-mannered and well-rounded child. He graduates the salutatorian of his class. He is very involved in athletics. He's a great swimmer, a great soccer player. He's very popular. He has a lot of friends and is said to have been very charismatic. Otto was really that guy in high school. He won a prom and homecoming king. After high school, Otto earns a scholarship to the University of Virginia where he enrolls. He also joins a fraternity, and by the end of 2015 he is a junior preparing to study abroad over in Hong Kong. Now this semester is the spring semester of 2016, but before entering into that endeavor, Otto wants to take a nice little trip somewhere and enjoy himself. And while he is looking over his options, he comes across an ad for a Chinese company called Young Pioneer Tours. We provide budget travels to destinations your mother would rather you stayed away from. That is their slogan. Quite ironic considering how things went down. Now Otto, he jumps at the opportunity. He signs up for a 5-day, 4-night New Year's party tour. It's $1,200. It'll take place over the winter break. He'll get a nice little walkthrough of North Korea. It's just sounding right up his alley. So from the moment that he confirms his booking, he is excited and counting down the days. Now he goes to China first, and then there he meets up with other group members that are going on the same tour. So they meet up and decide to travel together. Now upon their arrival to their destination, the group is immediately met with hostility. Their cameras are confiscated. Their smartphones are also confiscated, all of which are searched for materials that could be considered a threat to the North Korean government. Like, girl, we just came over here to party for the new year. We not coming to corrupt. But of course the Korean government wants to make sure, so they shake the girls down. Now it is a hasty and worrisome little interaction, but they are soon on their way to the adventure. After getting all of their things back, they go to settle into the place that they'll be staying at during the duration of their trip, which is a hotel commonly referred to as the Alcatraz of Fun. It is positioned on an island off the mainland, and the area is kind of touristy, right? It has 5 different restaurants. There are bars. There's a massage parlor, a spa, and a bowling alley for recreation. So they really kind of cater towards the tourist experience. Now Otto's roommate, who he is just now meeting, is Danny Grattan, a British man, and the 2 of them hit it off right away. There was no question whether or not they would enjoy the time that they had to share this small, close space. Their personalities, their energy really complement each other's. They just know it's about to be a good time. Everyone in the group agrees that they'll be attending the New Year's Eve party that is taking place at Main Square, not far from the hotel. The party is a vibe. They have a couple of drinks and nothing too crazy. Nobody gets too inebriated. And after the party, they all return to the area where the hotel is, but nobody is quite ready to go in for the night. Some of them head to the bar. Otto's roommate Danny goes to the bowling alley with a few other people from the hotel, and for about 2 hours, no one knows exactly where Otto is. When Danny returns to their shared room at 4:30 a.m., Otto is sound asleep in his bed and all appears to be well. But unbeknownst to anyone at the time, Otto has become a wanted man for a crime that they apparently take very seriously over in North Korea. At some point between them all arriving back to the area where the hotel is and deciding to split up and go do these various things, and Otto actually making it to his bed, somewhere between that time, he had wandered to an employee-only area of the hotel and had torn down a propaganda poster, presumably to take home as like a souvenir, and the whole thing had been captured on security cameras of the hotel. January 2nd rolls around. It is time for everybody to return to China. The trip over here to North Korea is over, and as they are headed through immigration control before making it to the point where they board their flights, Otto is tapped on his shoulder by 2 Korean soldiers. None of the group know why or what's going on, and Danny makes the joke, well, we won't be seeing you again, and then they all laugh, including Otto, but that is indeed the last that they will see of him. They arrive back in China and they are unable to get any information on Otto, why he was detained, what was going on, if he ever was able to make his flight. There's no information. After being tapped on the shoulder, Otto was taken through this wooden door beside the check-in area of the hotel. He has not been able to make any phone calls. So back in America, once a week goes by and they have not heard from their son, his parents become very worried. It is unlike him to just go missing like this and not make any kind of contact and not return any of their calls and texts. It is not until late January when they finally have an answer, when the North Korean government confirms that they had arrested Otto and he was sitting in a North Korean jail. 1 month after this, Otto appears on television. He is in a courtroom. He is very emotional, crying as he gives a confession. He also says that he regrets his actions and he pleads for them to return him to America. Don't even return me to China where my ticket says. Send me home. In the video, he thanks the North Korean government for the opportunity to apologize for his crime, to beg for forgiveness, and to beg for any assistance to save his life. He then says that he was taking the poster as a trophy for a Methodist church back home, quote, to harm the work ethic and the motivation of the Korean people, and had put on his quietest boots, the best for sneaking, which of course sounds more like the words of the North Korean authorities than Otto's own words. For one, Otto is Jewish. He has no affiliation with the Methodist Church, so why would he be stealing a poster to take home to harm the work ethic and motivation of the North Korean people? He also says, quote, I've made the single worst decision of my life, but I am only human. And I think that part he really did believe, because honestly, if I was arrested for taking a poster, I would think that was the single most worst decision I made in my life as well, because now I'm stuck over here and these people won't let me go. So that part I believe he believed. And they got him standing up there in court in front of Kim Jong-un and this other guy. Now, after his public appearance, of course, his parents are alarmed, and a lot of other American citizens are alarmed too. So thus begins the petition and the campaign to bring Otto home. But y'all, the North Korean government was not trying to hear that. In March of 2016, roughly 2 months after his TV appearance, he appears again in court to face his sentencing. He is given 15 years of hard labor for crimes against the state. And here he is signing the conditions of his sentence with his thumbprint. His parents hear the news and they are horrified at the outcome. 15 years felt like a lot for taking a poster. And by this point, they have been working tirelessly to have their son return home, to no avail. Now, the U.S. government, they get involved at this point and try to get Otto back, but it still takes more than a year of them going back and forth, negotiating, before Otto's parents receive the news that he will be released and he is on his way home. June 13th of 2017, a year and a half since his parents have spoken to him, seen him, Otto is back on U.S. soil. And what they had imagined would be this very joyous and happy moment is actually the next level of their nightmare. The state in which Otto is returned to them was described as an unresponsive, wakefulness. His eyes are open. He's able to blink and move them. He has suffered extensive brain damage due to a lack of oxygen to the brain. His hair has been buzzed off and cut like really short. There is a feeding tube going down his nostril, and his hands are folded inward. At the sight of him, his sister loses it. Okay, she starts screaming. She runs off the plane. Her mother follows because one, she wants to console her other child, and two, it was really hard for her to see her kid like that. They were not expecting this. They also said that he began to jerk violently, and that was just a lot to see. Otto is also blind and deaf, and the sounds that he was making while jerking like this were described as inhuman by his parents. He doesn't appear to like notice them when he sees them. His father just hugs him, and still his eyes are like wide open. They're not focused on the father. They're not giving any kind of inclination that he is aware of what's going on. And his father is just hopeful that whatever this is going on with him, it is not so bad that he cannot recoup from it. Paramedics have to carry Otto off of the plane by his armpits and his legs. They get him situated in the back of an ambulance, and his mother joins him to take the ride to the hospital. He's taken to the University of Cincinnati's medical center, and the doctor that is going to see him has been hand selected for him. He has 31 years of trauma center experience, and he is no stranger to like dangerous type of situations that happen overseas. Meanwhile, his family is camped out in the waiting room, hoping for answers as to how he has gotten into this vegetative state, and they're extremely hopeful that he'll be able to recover and tell his side of the story. When they contact North Korean officials for answers, they're told that Otto had been comatose since the day after he had appeared for his sentencing in March, and had actually never made it to the labor camp that he was sentenced to. Instead, he had been taken to the hospital and had been under their care the entire time. They deny any allegations that he was mistreated or abused in any kind of way. They say that they did not intentionally cause him any type of harm, and he had actually received top tier care. Now, as for how he had gotten to this state, according to them, he had contracted botulism, which is a food poisoning that is caused by bacteria that grows in improperly sterilized canned meats and some other preserved foods. That's why when you can and grow, you got to know what you're doing. You've been and killed the whole family trying to make a quick dinner. And they say they went to treat him, but he then suffered an allergic reaction to a medication that was supposed to help him. The doctors that he had seen sent over a thick stack of handwritten charts along with several brain scans that showed that Otto had suffered severe brain damage. Like his brain in spots was literally rotting. Otto also has a tracheotomy scar that suggests that at some point he was not breathing on his own and only breathing via machines. And as far as this explanation, Fred and Cindy, his parents, are not hearing it. They believe it's all a lie, and they believe that their son had been physically tortured while in prison over in North Korea, and that all of this that was done to him was done intentionally. Now, despite the extensive and exhaustive examinations carried out by doctors at UCMC, no definitive medical evidence explaining how his injury came about ever emerges. Now, according to these doctors, North Korea's claims of it being botulism and an unexpected reaction to medication was unlikely to have caused all of this damage. The math wasn't math in there. It wasn't. They did say that it's possible that he did have botulism at a certain point, like in the beginning, without them seeing any evidence of it now. But even still, they don't believe that if that was the case, it would have caused all of this. Within 48 hours of being returned, Otto has a fever of 104 and is showing no signs of improvement. They do more scans of his brain, and they show that he has lost a lot of brain tissue matter throughout his entire brain, which is consistent with a cardiopulmonary event, like a heart attack, that would have deprived his brain of oxygen. But they don't even know what could have caused a cardiopulmonary event like a heart attack. And it wasn't even any evidence of that. So they basically say, hey, this damage could have come from that, but we have no proof that that even occurred or why it would have occurred. When the doctors confirmed to his family that he will never be cognizant again, his parents make the tough decision to go ahead and have his feeding tube removed. They have been by his side day and night since his return. And unfortunately, on June 9th of 2017, just 6 days after he is reunited with his family, Otto dies. years. At the request of his parents, an autopsy is not performed. They only do a post-mortem medical examination that is not invasive. And this was kind of odd, I think, for a lot of people, including myself, because I would think that they will want to take advantage of their last and final opportunity to possibly get some answers. The medical examiner that does the external examination finds no signs of physical abuse, no signs of him being tortured whatsoever. And the final notes are that he had slipped into a coma after being deprived of oxygen, and also a lack of blood to his brain that was caused by a cardiopulmonary event. Even with this, his parents double down on their belief that he was actually tortured, and they push back on the medical examiner's report that says the opposite and specifically states that there was no physical signs of mistreatment, because they say that Otto's bottom row of teeth looked like they had been misaligned, as if someone had taken like a pair of pliers or something and like moved his teeth, not pulled anything out, moved his teeth around some. And they also say that there was a large scar on his right foot that he didn't have before he set off to go to North Korea. The following year, in April 2018, the Warmbiers filed a lawsuit against North Korea seeking damages. The lawsuit was filed in federal court, alleging that North Korea brutally tortured and murdered their son. And they followed that up with a televised interview where they expressed their beliefs and their claims and their reasoning why. Now, the day after they go on national TV with this, the coroner who had examined Otto, Dr. San Marco, unexpectedly calls a press conference of their own. Now, in her press conference, she says that she previously didn't do so out of respect for his parents, because her findings and also the findings of the doctors who had attended Otto completely contradicted these claims that his parents are now making publicly, and she just couldn't sit back and allow them to make these kind of claims that they had been told were not accurate by medical professionals. She said don't play with her. She knows what she is talking about. She addresses the claim about the teeth. She says that they were not misaligned, not rearranged at all, that it was noted during his post-mortem examination that the teeth were undisturbed. She reiterates that Otto had no signs of physical trauma, no fractures, no scars, and the one on his foot was not definitively indicative of anything sinister happening. And the damage to the brain was consistent with having been starved of oxygen and blood and not anything physical. Like, had they physically damaged his brain, it would have been a skull fracture or something, but there was not. And the doctor also pays respects to the Korean medical team. She says that he was well nourished and he was without any type of bed sores, which she says is very hard to achieve when you have a patient that has been in a coma for over a year. So to her, this proves that they were taking good care of him medically over in Korea. Miss Doctor says, quote, his body was in excellent condition. I'm sure he had to have round-the-clock care to be able to maintain the skin in the condition that it was in. They're grieving parents. I can't really make comments on what they said or their perception, but here in this office, we depend on science for our conclusions. And that felt real shady. So in the days that he had returned and his parents and family were by his side, he was also visited by a couple friends, 3 of which came forward and confirmed that they did not notice anything consistent with any type of physical torture. And unfortunately, the origin of Otto's injury really remains a mystery. Someone does know exactly what happened if what was said is not the truth. And we won't know unless they come forward and say, hey, I was there and X, Y, and Z transpired. Now, after the parents went public and then the doctor went public with her things, North Korea goes public and they have a statement as well. They said that their country is the biggest victim here in this Otto situation. They said that their treatment of him was humanitarian, and they were in turn met with a smear campaign accusing them of foul play. And they said, quote, although we had no reason at all to show mercy to such a criminal of the state, we provided him with medical treatment and care with all sincerity on a humanitarian basis until his return to the U.S. Not them being the biggest victim. The audacity. And I want to know what your thoughts are about Otto. Do you think it was foul play? Do you think he got sick because he was exposed to something? I want to know y'all thoughts, because I wouldn't put it past them to do something to him, but why would they then use over a year's worth of their medical resources to take care of him? That could have been part of the torture, just bring him to the brink of death and then return him home. That could very well be a possibility. But I was also thinking, because the doctor that saw him over in the US was like hand selected, what if they did find out that he was like medically tortured and they didn't want to stir up any more drama or make it a problem? So they being the US just lied like, oh yeah, no torture. They didn't do anything to him, natural causes. I think that's also a possibility. Who knows? Apparently not us, child. So the next case of being locked up abroad that we're going to get into is the case of Robert Pringle, and this took place over in Peru. In 2004, 41-year-old Robert Pringle, who is from Cape Town, South Africa, he is working at a manufacturing company. He's in the process of getting a divorce. He has an 11-year-old son with his soon-to-be ex-wife, and his son is the center of his world. He and his ex-wife, they have a good co-parenting situation going on, and everything in life is well until it isn't. He is promoted to manufacturing director, and he's overseeing 2 different sites of a very successful business. So with this position came not only a lot more money, but a lot more stress as well. Robert is managing the stress as best he can, but most days it still feels like he's drowning. Now, one evening, a colleague of his comes by to talk to him for a moment. He is talking about the stress and all of the things that are just weighing him down. And this coworker is like, I got just the thing that might help you out. Something that could at least surely take the edge off. Now, no, the colleague did not. He did not start doing no bending, child. He whips out this tiny bag of white powder and offers Robert a line. Now, at first, Robert is very skeptical, but his friend here takes down a line like it's nothing. And he assures Robert that he will love the feeling. He just needs to give it a try. He's telling Robert it'll make you feel better, you'll be more focused, all of the things that come along with doing a line. I wouldn't know, right? And finally, Robert is like, let me see, like, let me just do a little piece and see how I feel. So he does it and he likes it. Next thing you know, the two of them are both higher than the cost of living right now, okay? Having a good old time. He gives Robert a little starter stash, hooks him up with his plug, and from there, Robert goes and secures his own little stash. Next thing you know, he is taking a little piece every day. Every single day during the next 2 weeks, Robert rides into work on cloud 9. It makes his day more tolerable. It makes the stress manageable. This little white powder is his jam. But the cost of his new vice comes with a very hefty price tag. Before he knows it, he is spending sometimes $200 a day on his new hobby. It's an expensive little habit for him to have, but he is committed to it, baby. It's working for him. So he is going to work it into the budget by any means. Now, one evening when life seems like it is getting back together, Robert receives a phone call from his now ex-wife, and she tells him that she has now gotten engaged to this new guy and will be moving to Qatar with their son. This is on the Persian Gulf, baby, far, far away from where he is down in Cape Town, South Africa. She tells him that they can agree on visitations, but their son will be living in Qatar with her full time, and that's pretty much that on that. Now, one thing about life, if it ain't one thing, it's another sometimes, right? So just when he got his little stress from the job managed, in comes new stress from his son leaving the country and him likely only seeing the kid like once a year as opposed to every other day. He begins to indulge in even more of the things to circumvent that added stress, which just piles on to his problems. Him being as high as he is all the time at work begins to affect his work performance. And admittedly, with his son now gone, the drugs become the most important thing to him. He is well aware of his declining performance, but he kind of don't even care. So it's not really a shock to him when he is given no other choice but to resign. It was either type us up a cute little resignation letter for us to present to the rest of the company and save face, or we're gonna fire you. So he opts to resign. Without his income and still having this really expensive little habit, he starts selling his things to pay bills and also supply himself. It goes from that to him selling things and completely dodging his bills to afford his habit. He loses his place. He is forced to move in with his brother. And at that point, he realizes, like, this is a problem. And it might be out of my hands. Like, this might be above me. I might need help. So he enters into a rehabilitation program. There at this facility, he meets a guy who's also there receiving treatment, kind of in the same place he is in life. And we'll call this guy Sean. He and Sean are discussing their financial woes, how both of their lives have kind of gone downhill since they prioritized the white powder. And Sean tells him he knows a way that he probably could make some money, but he lets him know up front that the job comes with a huge risk and that it is smuggling, which is crazy because girl, ain't y'all here for help? After talking about it for a little bit, Robert tells him that he is interested because he figured, you know, he might give him a little freebie, a little something on the side in addition to his payout. So this just might work for him. This might be a cute situation. So Robert tells Sean to go ahead and talk to his boss, see if his boss will take a meeting with him, and if so, he is definitely down to make a couple runs. Within days, Sean is able to get Robert a meeting with his boss. The two meet up at Central Station, and to Robert's surprise, this boss is a really young guy, much younger than Robert, who looks very polished, very professional, and he tells Robert that he has a run that he can make to and back from Peru that will pay him $6,000 cash. He would just have to fly into Peru, pick up a package, bring it back, and deliver it locally. He makes it very clear that what he is picking up is the white powder. And Robert confirms to him that he is well aware of the things. Like, I fully understand. I'm picking up this illegal substance, bringing it into a different country. I get it. So once they get that very clear and understood, Mr. Bossman tells him that everything will be arranged and paid for as far as his travel, his stay, and Robert just needs to do the legwork. Now, he doesn't outright guarantee Robert that there is no chance of him getting caught, but he does tell him that the passage has been, quote, smooth, which makes Robert feel very completely comfortable, actually. Now, when the time comes for Robert to set off on his trip, he tells his brother, who he is still living with, that he has a job opportunity over in Johannesburg, and it's temporary. It'll only take place over the course of about 2 weeks, but it pays well. And he also reaches out to his son and gives his son the same story, that he's going to Johannesburg for 2 weeks to lay cables, and that it'll pay him some good money. So he's really excited about the opportunity of possibly seeing his son soon. Robert is so excited about getting his hands on some money that he is not at all thinking about the risks associated with smuggling. All he's thinking about is him possibly spending time with his son and him definitely spending the $6,000. He arrives in Lima, Peru on schedule, and he settles into the hotel room that has been booked for him. It's a nice hotel, and at this point he is just waiting around because he had been told ahead of time that after he had arrived, he'd be contacted by someone with the next steps. He's not told how they would contact him, who the person is, when they will be contacting him, none of the things, no details. So he just waits around that first night watching television, waiting on either the hotel phone to ring or his cell phone to ring, one of the two. The next day, he spends the morning waiting around, and he finally decides, I'm about to go out and sightsee. So he goes on a nice little stroll through Lima, and next thing you know, 3 days have now passed, and Robert has not heard a thing. And finally, on day 4, he receives a phone call from a man who does not identify himself. He just tells him to meet him at the park around the corner from the hotel, and to meet him now. So Robert here heads over to the park. He does not see anybody who appears to be waiting on him, so he sits down on a bench, does a little bit of people watching. Finally, after a little while, a man comes up to him. Again, he does not introduce himself, nor does he ask Robert if he's actually Robert to make sure he is talking to the right person. He just motions for Robert to get up and follow along. He tells Robert during their walk that the package is not ready, they're still getting it ready, and they would be in touch again once it is ready for departure. And that was pretty much it. Like, their little meeting was over, and it's like, girl, why you didn't say your package ain't ready over the phone? Oh no, y'all know only got like 2 street credits, baby. I don't be knowing the rules. Maybe the phone's dapped. So Robert heads back to the room, unsure when the package will be ready, like what percentage they are of completion. He calls his son to check in with him, tells him that the job is going great. He's having a good old time. And later on that evening, while he is waiting to hear back from the guy, he hears a loud knocking at his hotel room door. It's 2 men dressed up in these nice suits with very aggressive energy. He asks them who they are, and they tell him that they are the police. and each of them present to him a badge. They push past Robert, asking him what he was doing there in Peru, like what was the nature of his visit. He tells them that he is just there on vacation, sightseeing, you know, things of that nature. They tell him they do not believe him, and they proceed to search his room very aggressively. They completely ransack it. They tell him that they're looking for drugs or anything criminal. He tells them that there are no drugs in the room, and he's just at this moment glad that that is actually true. After they have thoroughly searched his things, they pull out a file with black and white photos. All of them are of men, some of them are of mugshots, and others appear to be like candid photos they had taken, kind of like a private eye would if they were following somebody. They ask him if he recognizes any of these men. He looks at the photos for a while, and he tells them that he doesn't, because he doesn't recognize any of these men. It wasn't a lie. And with that, they leave his hotel room, but he can tell that they are still very leery of him. Once they're gone out of his room, he lays on the bed and questions whether or not they do this. Like, is this a typical thing that they do to people, foreigners visiting Peru? Like, should I be worried, or is this like standard? If it was me at that moment, I would have aborted the mission, baby. Most definitely would have. But this ain't a story about me. It's about Robert. And he does not abort the mission. Robert is seeing it through. 2 days after he is visited by the police, he gets another call to return to the same park because the package is now ready. Now, at the park, he tells the man about this encounter with the police, how they dropped in, ransacked all of his things, and had all of the questions. And he asked if he should be concerned or not. Over the last 2 days since they left, he had finally begun second guessing this whole thing and thinking about what the consequences might be if he does get caught. He is a little shaky. But the man tells him not to worry, that the visit was intentional. He says that this is part of the process. And these 2 officers are actually customs officials. They came by to test him, to make sure he wouldn't fold, and to also get a good look at him so that they know who to look out for as he is going through customs. They're going to make sure he does not have any issues going through the airport on his way back. And this explanation gives Robert a lot of comfort. Do y'all believe him? Y'all believe the man or not? Let me know. I wish I could have a poll pop up right here, right now. So Robert takes the package, and later on that night, he is back in the room with it, looking at it. His instructions were just put it in his suitcase. It was inconspicuously packaged. It didn't just look like a couple bricks, you know? So he is going over the next step in his head to make sure that he does everything he needs to do to make this go by smoothly. Put it in your suitcase, go through customs between 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. only. No sooner, no later. He has also been provided a burner phone with a phone number saved in it that he is to call once he touches down to confirm that he's made it back into the country with the package. And then he is to destroy the burner phone, like completely smash that girl to smithereens. Now the following day is his date of departure, and all morning long he is nervous, stomach in knots. He leaves his hotel room at 5:30 p.m. heading to the airport. The whole taxi ride, he feel like he is about to poop his pants. He is trying to calm himself down, but the whole time he can't help but think about what could go wrong and what life will look like in the event that it does. And he is just not sure he wants to risk it for $6,000. In the grand scheme of things, risking your freedom, not seeing your son again, might not be worth the risk. Like, you trying to get some money to go see your son, but baby, if you go to jail, you might not ever see him again. And he's thinking about all of these things. Maybe he should have thought about these things when he was back at the facility talking to Sean, but here he is in the back of the taxi with drugs in his bag, and now all of this is playing through his mind. Robert becomes so nervous that he tells the taxi driver to pull over. He will pay him for the whole ride as if it was completed, but he needs to be let out of that car ASAP. And of course he has to take the suitcase with him. So now he is on the side of the road with his little package walking down the street. He goes off to a wooded area. He ditches the package, just puts it in some shrubs, covers it up, walks back to the main road with his suitcase, and calls another taxi for him to continue on his little way to the airport. Honey, Robert chickened out, as I would have too, so it's no shade. And he said that as soon as he got back in the taxi, that feeling of worry left. Like, he just felt so much better and felt so much peace that he believed it was confirmation that he had made the right choice to ditch that bag. Now, he is thinking about the fact that he is sure there will be consequences for him coming back empty-handed, and he ain't sure what those repercussions might be, because that is not something they had discussed. And child, by the time he gets seated on the plane, the worry is back, but this time it is what these consequences are about to be, because drug-related killings are not uncommon. Let's be for real. Right when he makes it through customs, he immediately sees two guys that he is sure are waiting for him. One reason being that he recognizes one of the guys as Mr. Boss Man that he had the initial meeting with. They come up to him, walk alongside him. He does not attempt to like flee or anything, as I probably would have. Girl, I probably would have taken off on foot and been grabbed by my collar. But he does not attempt to run from them. There's a guy on either side. The guy he is not familiar with is holding onto his arm. When the three of them get outside into the parking lot, he tells them that he did not bring back the package and why. They throw him in the car anyway. He is unsure what is about to happen at this point, where they're going, but he expected that there surely would be a problem. Like, they wouldn't just accept that and then let him go on about his merry way. And he felt no confidence in his ability to take off on foot and outrun them, so he was just along for the ride. They pull up to what looks like a hospital, and Mr. Bossman is like, "Do you know what this place is?" He says no, because he does not know what this place is. So Mr. Bossman proceeds to tell him that they traffic organs here. It's a body parts clinic. He then tells Robert that trafficking organs is actually quite popular, very lucrative, and he knows that he could get $50K for each of Robert's kidneys. And that's just the kidneys alone, not to mention all the other stuff he has inside of them. And Robert is quiet. So quiet you can hear a rat pissing on cotton, okay? Mr. Bossman tells Robert that he has options. He can either pay off his debt with his body parts, he can pay off his debt with his family's body parts, and proceeds to call out the names, ages, and addresses of his brother, sister, and nephew. And he presents him with a third option. He can go back to Peru and get another package. For Robert, there's really only one option here, and that's to return to Peru and finish what he has started. Child, y'all niece done joined us. Hey girl. Hi, pretty piggy. Well, you look so pretty. You look so pretty. A beautiful girl. When he agrees that he'll return to Peru, they allow him to go home, and he tells his brother that the first opportunity went so well that he's been offered a second. And so he'll be setting out again soon, and 2 weeks later, he gets a call that it is time. All of the things have been booked, and the flight is ready. 2 days after the call, he arrives back in Peru again, but this time it's a little different. After sitting in the hotel room for 2 days waiting to be contacted, he is called by a different man who tells him to meet at a street corner that is diagonally across from the hotel that he is currently staying in. This time it's a man and a woman he had never seen before that he is meeting up with. The woman introduces the man as Carlos, but she doesn't give her own name and she doesn't ask his name. Now they take him to a second location, which is a very run-down, cheap motel. It's filthy. Nothing like the one he had previously stayed in. And they give him instructions to wait there in the room. He is thinking they've left, so after a while of sitting there bored, he decides he is going to take himself a little stroll. But when he opens the door, he sees that Carlos is actually guarding the door and tells him to go back inside. He ain't going nowhere. Now, a little while later in the day, the woman returns to the room and she has this vest. The vest has diamond-shaped packages or like patches sewn in them that are obviously stuffed with something. These diamond-shaped patches are all across the back, all across the front of the vest, and it is very obvious that this time he's not carrying a package in his luggage. This time he is the package. The woman tells him that it is 1 kilogram, which he realizes he had not been told how much was in the previous package. So that sticks out to him. And she tells him that they're gonna put the vest underneath his clothing. And he is worried because the stitch job on the vest was very poor. And he's like, girl, if y'all couldn't stitch this thing up any neater than this and conceal it, like how am I gonna trust you to conceal it enough for me to walk through these people's airport and not be found out? But he knows he has no choice. So he removes his clothes. They put the vest on him. He puts his clothes on top of it. And it looks crazy. It looks absolutely insane. It's lumpy, it's bulky, it looks weird, and he is thinking there's no way he is going to make it through. When they don't even attempt to make any changes and make it look less obvious or suspicious, he begins to believe that he's being set up. that he is purposely being set up, and it was never their intention for him to return to Peru and finish the job. That is not how he is paying for his indiscretions. He's being fed to the wolves. With them knowing where his family lives, he doesn't even consider running away the way that some of y'all would and leave y'all's grannies in the crosshairs. He doesn't do that. He just decides that he's gonna see it through. This trip did not come with all of the freedoms and amenities that the first trip came with. Like I mentioned, the hotel room he is staying in is so run down. Carlos and this unnamed woman are keeping him in their sight at all times. Whenever he wants to make a phone call, they give him a very short amount of time to do so. They are right there listening to everything he says on the call. So he just calls his son to tell him that he loves him. And when it is time for him to leave Peru, the pair escort him personally to the airport. They walk him inside the airport, and the woman stands there to watch and make sure he goes past the first check. When it is time for him to present his passport, the woman that he shows it to, she notices that this trip has been very short. So she asks him, like, what would be the reason for you to travel to Peru for just a couple of days? He tells her that with the language barrier, that the trip was not as enjoyable as he'd hoped it to be. So he decided to just cut it short and return home. And she seemingly takes this as a plausible explanation, closes the passport, hands it back to him, and motions him to go on ahead. Moments later, he is strolling through the airport, him and his little suitcase, when an officer comes up to him, doesn't say a word, just pats him down the back and starts walking away and motions for Robert to come along with him. Y'all, Bella is not letting me do this without her, so you just lay here, just lay down. I know. This man had come up to him randomly, had pat him down like he already knew and had been waiting for Robert. And Robert says at this moment he just felt numb. He didn't feel anything. They lead him upstairs, they remove his clothes, they take the vest, cut it open, test it, and of course they confirm that it is what they thought it was. He is searched some more, placed under arrest, and the holding cell they take him to is filthy, it's nasty, smells horrible. He's in there with a few other people, and he is chatting it up with his little temporary cellmates or whatever, and while he's talking to these people, he tells them what happened. He's honest, and one of them tells him that the drug people have a deal with customs in Peru. Y'all, this girl is literally looking up in my face and listening to me like she is taking it all in. They explained that two people go through customs at the same time. One of them will be allowed to go through with no problem. This person is carrying about 10 kilos and the other guy is only carrying 1 kilo, and he is the fall guy. Their sacrificial lamb, if you will. And he realizes in this moment that that was the debt that he is coming to pay. That he really was set up. Robert spends the next 15 days there in the holding cell before he is taken into a van and transported to the actual prison. And child, the poor conditions of their holding cell had nothing on the trifling conditions of the prison. It was disgusting. There are 6 inmates to a cell that he says was very obviously designed for only 2 cellmates. So it's super cramped. There are only 2 beds, so 4 of them are forced to sleep on the floor with the bugs, el cucarachas. And unfortunately, they are in no rush to get this man his court dates, his phone calls, or his sentences. Baby, the prison system over there is nothing like the prison system over here, okay? A whole year after his arrest, on Robert's birthday, he receives a letter informing him of his sentence, which is 7 years. By now, he's had no choice but to come clean to his family, including his son, about what he really was up to and where he currently is. And he decides to go back to what he knows as a coping mechanism. Drugs are readily available for either a price or a favor. So his mission at that point is to get high and stay high for the next 6 years. Now, at some point, he gets a little too high, a little too turned up, and he finds himself hospitalized, goes into a coma, and has to be brought back from the brink of death. And prison in Peru, according to his account, was a cesspool of toxicity and violence. It was just a complete hellhole. In 2008, after serving 3.5 years of his sentence, Robert is finally paroled, but he is ordered to remain in Peru for the duration of his sentence. He is not to leave. Now, in February of 2011, his mother becomes very ill. It is not believed that she will make it. So he is allowed to return to South Africa for just 1 month to spend with his mom. But he goes back home to Cape Town, South Africa, and does not return after that month. So he is currently a wanted man down in Peru. And Robert said he ain't never going back. They're gonna have to come catch him if they want him, okay? And what's really crazy is I would have returned, honestly, because he only had like less than a year. He only had a few months left to stay in Peru. But then again, if you're not going back to Peru, it's like, girl, you kind of can afford to be on the run, be a fugitive. I don't know. Like I said, I only have about 2 street credits, girl. I don't know the rules like that. So I guess I can't truly say what I would or wouldn't do, but I would like to know what you would do. Would you return to Peru and live there for those last couple months to be a free man across the board? Or would you do what he did and say, F them, I'm never going back anyway? If it was some years, I would have done that. I ain't gonna hold you. I probably would have tried to dip, got on a little boat or something, gone across a little river, ocean, sea, right when they paroled me. I think I would have tried to make my escape. But if I stayed and only had a couple months left, girl, I just probably would have had to FaceTime mama and ride it out. I think I would have went back. Anyway, I'm just rambling at this point, and I would love to know your thoughts. Let me know down below. Please like the video before you leave. Subscribe to the channel if you have not. And as always, I appreciate you so much for spending your time with me, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Peace. What is up, my YouTube family? Well, I feel like something is not recording. Everything is going. Like, where is my melanin? Why is it looking like this? Fred and Sydney Warmbier in Ohio. I was about to say Ohio, Illinois. Please pull it together. It's Cincinnati, Ohio. First of all, how do you even pronounce this word? Is this salutatorian? Is that it? He graduates the salutatorian. After high school, he earns a, I was about to say a graduation. What is going on with me today? I should have filmed yesterday, but my life was a little bit more together. Y'all, my carry-out keeps falling. Like, what's going on, girl? What's tea? Get it off your chest, let's go. Now, upon their rival, where the A at? The worth, I always say worth ethic. Harm the worth, okay. To harm the work ethic, he appears again in court to face his sentencing. He did not appear in court, they sent him a letter. What am I talking about? Yes, he did, that was the other guy. Otto was awesomely, what? When the doctors confirmed to his, y'all, the plant just fell again. The carry-out, you're just gonna stay on the ground for right now because I ain't got time. A couple of days later, John, who is John? I was trying to say a little in a while. Now, a little while later in the, you look like me, your mommy's girl. At this point, he has no choice. By now he